All the girls at school have boyfriends, Mama. It's not a big deal. You act like I'm committing some crime. Mr. Adewale paced back and forth, shaking his head. You think you know better than us, eh? You think Lagos is safe for a naive girl who doesn't listen to her parents? Let me tell you, as long as you live under my roof, you will obey my rules. And my rule is, stay away from that boy. Focus on your books. The late afternoon sun hung like a golden lantern over Ikeja, Lagos, casting long shadows across the crowded streets. The air shimmered with heat, and the lively buzz of the city filled every corner. In the distance, market women called out to customers, balancing baskets of ripe plantains and oranges on their heads. Motorcycle taxis, okadas, weaved through honking cars, and children in dusty uniforms kicked a ball around, laughing with unbridled joy. Inside the modest blue and white bungalow on a quiet side street, 16-year-old Vera sat at the edge of the sofa, clutching a small backpack to her chest. Her heart pounded as she faced her parents. Her mother, Efe, stood with tears in her eyes, and her father, Mr. Adewale, loomed with a stern frown etched on his face. The room was thick with tension, like the heavy air before a storm. Vera, please, her mother pleaded, wringing her hands nervously. You are our only daughter. Listen to your father. Stop spending so much time with that boy. Focus on your studies and your future, my dear. Vera kept her eyes down, studying the pattern on the floor to avoid her mother's tearful gaze. Mama, I'm just a teenager, she said softly, trying to keep her voice steady. He is my friend. He understands me. You don't know what it's like to be young and in love. At the word love, her father's face darkened. He slammed his open palm down on the wooden coffee table with a loud thwack, making Vera jump. Love? Mr. Adewale thundered. What do you know about love? You are too young to know anything. I have warned you about boys like Tunde. They will promise you the world and then leave you with nothing. He pointed a finger at Vera, his voice sharp as a knife. Do you want to throw your life away, all for some smooth-talking boy? Vera felt heat rise to her cheeks. She uncrossed and recrossed her arms over her chest, hugging herself. Papa, you don't even know him, she muttered, a stubborn edge creeping into her tone. Tunde cares about me. He respects me. Her mother stepped closer, gently touching Vera's shoulder. My daughter, we were young once too, Efe said, her voice gentle but urgent. We understand those feelings, but boys like Tunde, they can derail your life. Have you thought about your education, your future career? Vera, have you thought about what happens if what, Mama? Vera interrupted, pulling away from her mother's touch. She hated being treated like a child who didn't understand the world. If I have a boyfriend, all the girls at school have boyfriends, Mama. It's not a big deal. You act like I'm committing some crime. Mr. Adewale paced back and forth, shaking his head. You think you know better than us, eh? You think Lagos is safe for a naive girl who doesn't listen to her parents? Let me tell you, as long as you live under my roof, you will obey my rules. And my rule is, stay away from that boy. Focus on your books. Vera stood up, her backpack tumbling to the floor. A few school books and a pencil case spilled out. She squared her shoulders, trying not to show how intimidated she was by her father's anger. Papa, I'm trying to focus on school. I am. But Tunde, he helps me with my homework sometimes. And he says he loves me. Loves you. Her father gave a bitter laugh, cutting her off. A 16 years old. You think this is love? That boy is distracting you. Have you not seen your last report card? Your maths grades are dropping. Why? Because you spend your evenings gallivanting with him instead of studying. I will not allow this. He jabbed his finger towards the door. After school, you come straight home. No more wandering around with that riffraff. Vera felt a surge of anger and embarrassment. It was true her maths grade had slipped, but just a little. And it wasn't Tunde's fault. Maths was hard for her, and Tunde actually tried to help. Tunde is not a riffraff, she mumbled defiantly. He's a good person. He even has a part-time job. He's responsible. Efe's eyes widened anxiously as she glanced between her husband and daughter. The mother gently tried to de-escalate the situation. Adewale, please, she said to her husband, placing a hand on his arm. Let's not push her too hard. But Mr. Adewale raised his hand to silence his wife, his eyes never leaving Vera. No, Efe. This girl needs a firm hand. If we don't correct her now, we will lose her. He took a step toward Vera, lowering his voice, though it was still full of fury. Vera, listen to me carefully. If you continue down this path, you will regret it, I promise you. Do you want to bring shame to this family, eh? Do you want to spoil our name in this neighborhood? Vera's throat tightened. She blinked back the sting of tears, but lifted her chin in defiance. I'm not bringing any shame to anyone. You're overreacting, Papa. We just talk and hang out after school. It's not like I'm doing anything bad. Her father's face contorted in anger. Overreacting? So, you think I'm stupid, Abby? You think I don't know what can happen between a boy and a girl when they hang out? I have seen it many times. A young girl thinks she's in love. She disobeys her parents. Then one mistake and he stopped himself, taking a deep breath as if to be calm. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter but even more intense. This discussion is over. If I so much as see you near that boy again, Vera, you wish you had listened to us. That is not a threat, it's a promise. A heavy silence fell in the living room. Outside, the laughter of children and the distant honk of a car horn drifted in through the open window. Vera's hands were balled into fists at her sides. She felt a mixture of anger, fear, and stubborn resolve swelling in her chest. Her mother picked up the fallen backpack and placed it back into Vera's hands gently. My child, Efe said softly, her eyes pleading. We love you. We want what's best for you. Please, just do as your father says. Focus on school. You have a big dreams, remember? You always said you wanted to become a nurse and help people. Don't throw that away, my child. For a moment, Vera's expression faltered. She did remember that dream. Her parents had been so proud when she talked about it. But the memory of Tunde's smile and the way her heart felt light around him pushed back against her parents' words. She straightened her spine. I hear you, Mama. Papa, I hear you too, she said quietly. I will think about what you have said. Mr. Adewale opened his mouth to argue more, but Efe touched his arm again, shaking her head slightly. She could see that pressing further might only harden their daughter's stance. Reluctantly, Vera's father nodded. See that you do, he said gruffly. Without another word, Vera turned and walked to her room, her backpack clutched tightly. As she closed the door, she heard her mother's hushed voice begin, Adewale, maybe we should, but Vera didn't catch the rest. She leaned against the door and exhaled shakily. Her heart was racing. Anger pulsed through her veins. but beneath it was a silver of guilt and worry. They just don't understand, she told herself, wiping a stray tear from her cheek. I'm not a little girl anymore. I can take care of myself, and I won't let them take Tunde away from me. She sat on the edge of her bed and pulled out her phone. Her hands still trembled as she typed a text to Tunde. Hey, can we meet after school tomorrow? Need to see you. She hit send and stared at the screen. A few moments later, it lit up with a reply. Shut in, Vera. Usual place by the corner shop. Despite the turmoil of the evening, a small smile crept onto Vera's face. Usual place. That meant the little spot near the suya stand where they often met to chat and share a spicy grilled beef skewer after school. With Tunde, everything felt simple, easy. Her parents' voices in the living room faded from her mind as she thought of his grin and the way he always knew how to make her laugh. They just don't know him, she whispered to herself. They don't know how much he cares about me. Outside her window, the sun dipped lower, and the golden light of Lagos evening gave way to a deep purple sky. In the living room, her parents' murmured conversation continued late into the night, their voices heavy with worry. But in her room, Vera dreamed of a world where her love was not forbidden, blissfully unaware of how drastically her life was about to change. The next day after school, the air was thick and humid, promising an evening rain. Vera slipped away from the school gate, carefully avoiding the familiar faces of neighbors who might report back to her parents. She made her way to the corner shop near a bustling open-air market. The smell of barbecued suya meat, roasting on charcoal, and the rich aroma of spices wafted from the air. It was a smell Vera had come to associate with stolen moments of happiness. Under the shade of a rusty, corrugated metal awning, Tunde was already waiting. He leaned casually against the wall, one foot crossed over the other, looking every bit the charming 17-year-old that had captured Vera's heart. He wore a crisp white shirt tucked in, well-fitted jeans, and a silver chain peeked out from his collar. When he spotted Vera, his face broke into that bright smile that made her stomach flutter. Hey you, Tunde greeted, pushing off the wall. He reached out and took Vera's hand, pulling her close. You okay? Your message sounded urgent. For a moment, Vera forgot all about the argument with her parents the night before. Being near Tunde was like stepping into a warmer sun. She smiled back. I am now, she said, squeezing his hand. They bought 2 sticks of suya from the vendor. The beef wrapped in newspaper and sprinkled with extra pepper and salt. Vera's eyes watered as she bit into the spicy meat, and Tunde laughed, handing her a cold sachet of water to drink. You always want extra pepper, even when it makes you cry, he teased, wiping a tear from the corner of her eye with his thumb. Vera blushed at the gentle gesture. They found a quiet spot at the side of the shop, sitting on a low concrete sledge. For a while, they just watched the world go by, women bargaining over tomatoes, a group of boys chasing each other around a parked downfall bus. The bus conductor shouting for passengers heading to Ojuelegba. Finally, Tunde nudged her. So, what's up? Something on your mind? Vera hesitated, picking at the remaining piece of suya. She hadn't told Tunde about the fight with her parents yet. She was worried he might think she couldn't handle her own family, or worse, that he would distance himself to avoid causing trouble. But she also felt he had a right to know. It's my parents, she said at last, voice low. They found out about us, or at least they suspect I've been seeing you. Tunde raised an eyebrow. And you told them we are dating? I tried. They didn't take it well, she sighed, remembering her father's anger. They think I'm too young. They basically forbade me from seeing you. Tunde let out a short, humorless laugh. Ah, typical. Nigerian parents and their strict ways. What did you expect? He said, shrugging. They just want to control you. The bitterness in his tone surprised Vera. She glanced at him. They're not bad people, Tunde. They're just old-fashioned. They worry about me. Tunde rolled his eyes. Old-fashioned is one word for it. Paranoid is another. That's like having a boyfriend who ruin your life. That's silly. We are not doing anything wrong. We are just enjoying life. Vera nodded slowly. She wanted to believe that. I told them that, but Papa got so angry. He said, if he sees me with you again, I will regret it. At that, Tunde put an arm around her shoulders protectively. Are you afraid? She leaned into him a little. I don't know. A bit, I guess. I hate making them angry, especially Mama. She was crying. It made me feel guilty, but I also hate that they won't even give us a chance. They don't even know you, and they are calling you riffraff. Tunde's jaw tightened. They called me riffraff? Vera winced, realizing too late that she had slipped up. Not in those exact words, but Papa doesn't think you are, suitable. Tunde removed his arm from her shoulders and sat up straighter. She could see the offense in his eyes. I may not be rich, but I'm not riffraff, he said sharply. I know. Vera rushed to say, placing a hand on his arm. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. My father was just angry and talking nonsense. I don't think that about you, and I won't let his words come between us. Tunde's posture relaxed slightly. He sighed. It's okay. I guess I'm used to people looking down on me. Hey, Vera tilted her head to catch his eye. I don't look down on you. I care about you. I love you, Tunde. It was the first time she had spoken the words out loud. Her heart raced as she said them. For a second, she worried he might not say it back, but then he smiled. That dazzling smile that made her melt, and gently pressed a kiss to her forehead. I love you too, Vera, he murmured. All the tension of the day dissipated. Vera closed her eyes, savoring the moment. In that instant, nothing else mattered. Not her parents' anger, not the disapproving stares of neighbors who might see them. The world was just her and Tunde, and the warm Lagos breeze wrapping them in its embrace. They stayed out until dusk, talking about their dreams. Tunde spoke of wanting to start his own business one day, maybe a tech business or a trade between Lagos and other cities. Vera talked about her passion for nursing and how she hoped to work in a big hospital. They made each other laugh with silly impressions of their teachers, and Tunde promised he would help tutor her in math so her grades would improve. By the time they parted ways, Vera felt lighter, happier. Tunde gave her one last peck on the cheek as they walked her pathway home under the street light. I wish I could walk you all the way, he said, standing at a corner a few streets from her house. But if your old man sees me, Vera put a finger to his lips, shushing him playfully. It's okay. I can go from here. I don't want World War III tonight at home. He chuckled. Text me when you are inside, so I know you are safe. I will. She reluctantly let go of his hand and hurried down the dimly lit road toward her house. As she sneaked in through the gate, she saw the living room light still on. She hoped her father wasn't waiting up. Carefully, Vera tiptoed inside. The house was quiet. Her parents' bedroom door was closed, and she could hear the low drone of the TV from within. She sighed in relief. Maybe they had gone to bed watching a film. She slipped into her own room without incident. Lying in bed that night, Vera replayed the evening in her mind. She and Tunde had vowed to find ways to see each other despite her parents' ban. There was a thrill in the secrecy, an excitement in knowing something that her parents did not. It made her forbidden love feel even more special. But fate has a way of catching up with those who don't heed warnings, and it did not take long for consequences to come knocking on Vera's door. Only 2 months later, Vera sat alone on the edge of her bed, staring at a small white stick in her trembling hands. The single pink line that had always appeared on her previous test was now accompanied by a second fainter line, 2 lines, positive. Her ears rang and her vision blurred with sudden tears. This can't be happening. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing the test to be wrong. But when she opened them, the 2 lines were still there, sealing her fate. She felt equal parts terror and disbelief. They had been careless only once or twice, caught up in their youthful passion and convinced that nothing bad could happen. After all, they were in love and love felt invisible. Now this. Vera's thoughts immediately flew to her parents, her father's angry professors, her mother's worried pleas. If you continue down this path, you will regret it, her father had said. How could she face them now? Her phone lay on the bed beside her. With trembling fingers, she picked it up and dialed Tunde's number. He answered on the second ring. Hey, beautiful, he chimed cheerfully, oblivious to the chaos consuming Vera. I was just thinking about you. Tunde, Vera's voice cracked, and she couldn't hold back the sob that followed. The change in her tone must have been obvious because Tunde's voice immediately sharpened with concern. What is it? What's wrong? I need to see you now, please, she managed to get out between trembling lips. It was late evening, but Vera didn't care. 20 minutes later, under the cover of darkness, she met Tunde behind the closed marketplace, where they knew they couldn't be seen. The stalls were shuttered, and only a few street lamps cast long shadows between rows of empty wooden tables. Vera clutched a shawl around her, trying to ward off the night chill, or maybe just her own fear. When Tunde arrived, he looked worried. Vera, are you okay? You are scaring me. What happened? He asked, taking her hand. He noticed the pregnancy test stick she was unintentionally still clutching, and his eyes widened. Is that? Vera nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. In a shaky voice, she whispered, I'm pregnant. For a moment, time stood still. Tunde stared at the test in her hands, as if it might jump out and bite him. How do you know? Are you sure? His voice was a hoarse whisper. I took 3 tests, Vera replied, sniffling. All positive. I also haven't had my period in 2 months. I'm so sorry, Tunde. I didn't know this would happen. I'm scared. She expected him to hug her, to tell her it would be alright, but instead, Tunde let go of her hand and took a step back as though physically recoiling from the news. He ran a hand over his head and he began pacing. This is no good though, he muttered to himself. My God, how could you be so careless? Vera flinched. We are careless, she corrected softly. It wasn't just me. So what are you going to do? He asked abruptly. Ignoring her comment, he kept pacing, agitating, rolling off him. What am I going to do? Vera repeated, confusion and hurt creeping into her voice. I thought we would figure that out together. Tunde, I can't do this alone. At last, he stopped and looked at her. His eyes, which were so warm and tender just yesterday, were now clouded with fear and something that looked like resentment. I have plans, Vera, he said, almost as if she wasn't standing there crying. You know, I just got that opportunity to go to Ibadan for my work. My uncle said he can get me a contract job there. I was planning to leave next week. Vera's stomach dropped. He had mentioned a possible job in Ibadan, but never that it was so certain or so soon. Next week, she echoed. You never told me it was settled. You are really going to leave Lagos? I was going to tell you once it was finalized, he said, rubbing his temple. Look, this pregnancy, it's bad timing. I can't deal with this right now. Vera stared at him. trying to process his words. Her heart pounded painfully in her chest. Bad timing, she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. Tunde, it's not an it. This is a baby, our baby. And you said you loved me. He shook his head. Vera, I'm 17. You are 16. We are not ready to raise a child. It will ruin us. How will you finish school? How will I work? Do you expect me to throw away the Ibadan opportunity and stay here to become a father at 17? Each word hit Vera like a slap. She put a hand on her belly, as though to shield the life growing inside. She could hardly recognize this cold, panicked boy as the same person who had held her hand and made promises under the Lagos stars. I don't know what I expect, she said, voice trembling. I thought you would be here for me, for us. We could figure out a way. My mother had me when she was young and Tunde interrupted, voice rising. And look how hard her life became. Don't you see, Vera? We would be throwing our lives away. I'm sorry this happened, but I can't. I can't handle this right now. Vera's knees felt weak. She leaned against one of the market stalls for support. So what are you saying? She asked, dread creeping in. He avoided her eyes. I'm saying it's your problem, he muttered. You should have been more careful. The world tilted. Vera felt like she had been punched in the gut. My problem? She repeated, anger now flaring through her pain. It's our problem, Tunde. I didn't get myself pregnant. Shh! Keep your voice down, he hissed, glancing around nervously, even though the market was empty at this hour. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Look, I leave for Ibadan on Monday. I'll be staying with my uncle. Maybe I can send you some money when I settle, okay? But I can't stay here. And I can't be a father now. I'm sorry. Vera jerked away from him, disgust and heartbreak contorting her features. Money? You think I called you here for money? She wiped the tears from her face with the back of her hand. They kept coming. I called you because I trusted you. Because I thought you loved me and we would face this together. How can you do this, Tunde? How can you just walk away? Tunde's eyes were shining now, maybe with tears or just stress. In the dim light, it was hard to tell. I do love you, he said quietly. But this, I'm not ready. And I can't ruin my chances in Ibadan. Maybe your parent will help you or something. At the mention of her parent, Vera let out a choked sob. How could she tell her parents now? The image of her father's enraged face and her mother's devastated tears flashed in her mind. If they had been angry about seeing a boy, how much worse would it be when they learned she was pregnant? She looked at Tunde, the despair playing on her face. They will kill me, she whispered. I can't face them. I have no one else, Tunde, except you. An uncomfortable silence followed. Tunde couldn't meet her gaze. I'm sorry, he repeated, almost under his breath, and with that he turned and began to walk away. His figure blending into the dark maze of the empty market. Vera watched him leave, her whole world crashing down around her. She wanted to scream at him, to run after him and pound on his back until he acknowledged her, acknowledged their unborn child, something, but her legs felt rooted to the spot, heavy and numb. Please, don't leave me, she found herself whimpering, but her voice was too soft. The night swallowed her words and Tunde never looked back. At length, Vera forced herself to move. She stumbled home like a ghost, her mind blank and her heart shattered. She snuck back into the house long after midnight, crept into her room and buried her face in her pillow to muffle the sound of her sobs. Over the next few days, Vera lived in a daze. She avoided her parents as much as possible, leaving for school early and claiming she had group projects to stay late. In truth, she could barely concentrate on classes. She skipped lunch to save money, knowing she might need every naira soon, and also because eating made her sick. Tunde's phone went unreachable the day after their meeting, Vera heard from a mutual friend that he had indeed left Lagos for Ibadan. He was gone. Each day was a blur of fear and loneliness. Vera couldn't bring herself to confess to anyone or ask for help, certainly not her parents. They were the last people she could turn to now. So she carried her secret in silence, all the while the evidence of it grew slowly in her belly. She managed to hide her condition for over 4 months. She wore baggy dresses and kept a scarf handy to drape around herself. She withdrew from friends and stopped attending this after-school literature club she loved, not wanting anyone to get too close and notice the changes in her body. But of course, one cannot hide a pregnancy forever. The revelation came one Saturday morning, a day that started with deceptive normalcy. In the kitchen, Vera stood at the stove frying plantains for breakfast. The sizzle and pop of oil and the sweet smell normally cheered her, but this morning she felt dizzy and a bit faint. She had one hand on her back to ease an ache and the other gently resting on the subtle curve of her 5-month pregnant stomach. Her mother walked in, tying a wrapper around her waist. "Vera, how far? The father wants to know if the plantain is ready," Efe began. But then she stopped, eyes narrowing as she looked at her daughter. Vera's heart skipped. She quickly dropped her hand from her belly and straightened up. "It's almost ready, Mama," she said quickly, but her mother wasn't listening. Efe's face had gone pale, her gaze fixed on Vera's midsection. The loose t-shirt Vera wore was slightly damp with sweat and clung to her form, just enough to reveal a shape that could no longer be dismissed as a mere bit of weight gain. "Vera," her mother said slowly, a tremor in her voice. "What is that?" Vera's mouth went dry. "What is what, Mama?" She feigned ignorance, stepping away from the stove. Her mind raced for a lie. Maybe she could claim she had overeaten recently. But 5 months was clearly more than mere overeating. Before she could say anything more, the kitchen door swung open and her father stepped in, drawn by the conversation. "What's going on here?" Mr. Dewale asked, looking from his wife to Vera. Efe turned to him with panic in her eyes. She pointed a shaky finger at Vera's belly. "Adewale, look." Her father's eyes followed the gesture. He stared at Vera's midsection. Vera instinctively wrapped her arms around herself, but it was too late. The truth was apparent. For a moment, time froze. The only sound was the oil spitting in the pan. Mr. Dewale's face turned from confusion to downing horror, and then to an expression of pure rage and betrayal. No, it cannot be," he said, his voice low and dangerous. Vera felt tears sprinkling at the corners of her eyes. "Papa, I can explain," she whispered, taking a step forward. He took a step back, as if recoiling from something dirty. "You can explain? Explain?" he roared, the volume of his voice rising so suddenly that Vera flinched. "So it's true what my eyes are seeing. You're pregnant." In the next instant, the pan on the stove began to smoke. The plantain started to burn. The smell of char filled the kitchen. Efe quickly moved to switch off the burner, her hands trembling violently. The everyday act of saving breakfast from burning felt absorbed amidst life-altering drama unfolding. Vera opened her mouth, but no words came. What could she say? The silence was answer enough. Her father let out a sound that was between a growl and a cry. He looked up toward the ceiling as if asking God for strength, then glared back at his daughter. "Who is responsible for this?" he demanded, though from his tone he already knew. Vera's lips quivered. She glanced at her mother's face. Efe was deadly quiet, one hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Is it that boy? That Tunde?" her father pressed. Slowly, shamefully, Vera nodded. "Yes, Papa. I'm sorry. Sorry?" The word exploded from him like a gunshot. In an instant, Mr. Adewale lunged forward and swept his arm across the kitchen table, sending the bowl of sliced plantains crashing to the floor. The stainless steel bowl clanged loudly as slices of oil plantain scattered. Vera jumped back against the counter, her hand protectively flying to her belly. "I warned you," her father shouted, voice cracking with pain and fury. "I gave you everything, a home, love, and education, and this is how you repay me? By doing the one thing I begged you not to do, by bringing disgrace into my house." Ife sobbed quietly in the corner, her shoulders shaking. "Adewale, please, the neighbors will hear." "Let them hear," he said, his voice echoing. "Let the whole world hear how my only daughter, the pride of my life, has ruined herself." Vera sank to her knees among the falling pieces of plantain, weeping openly now. "Papa, please, I made a mistake," she cried. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm so sorry. Mama, please." She reached a hand toward her mother. Her mother stepped forward as if to console her, tears running down her face. But Mr. Adewale blocked his wife with an outstretched arm. "No, Efe, don't." His voice was cold, calm, and compared to his shouting a moment before. He stared down at Vera, who knelt on the floor. "Stand up," he commanded. Vera struggled to her feet, using the counter for support. Her whole body was shaking. Her father's eyes were like stone. "Go to your room," he said, voice low. "Pack your things." Vera's heart nearly stopped. What? She stammered, not sure she had heard right. "You heard me," he replied. "Pack your things. You cannot stay here, not in my house." Ife gasped. "Adewale, no, she's our daughter. Where will she go in her condition? We cannot just throw her out." "We can, and we will," he snapped, though his voice trembled at the edges. The pain behind his anger was evident. "If she stays, what message does that send? That under my roof, a child can disobey and disgrace her family with no consequences? That I, Adewale, condone immorality? Never." He looked back at Vera. "You have made your choice, Vera. Now, you live with it. You want to behave like an adult, right? Fine. Go out and survive on your own like an adult." Vera's vision swam. She could hardly breathe. "Papa, please, I have nowhere to go," she cried, reaching out to touch his arm. He pulled away as if her touch burned. In a frighteningly quiet voice, he said, "Go now, before I say something or do something we will all regret." Efe tried again, reaching for her husband's shoulder. "My husband, please. Let us think about this. So, she made a mistake, yes, but we can handle this quietly. She can stay. We can help her." Mr. Adewale wailed on his wife, his face twisted in anguish. "Help her? After what she has done? Do you want our younger ones, her brothers, to think this is acceptable? Do you want neighbors to laugh at us, to call us bad parents? You know how people gossip. We warned her, and she still..." He broke off, fist clenching. "No, if you want to follow her, go, but she's not staying under this roof another night." At this ultimatum, Efe broke down in fresh wails, torn between her husband and her daughter. Please don't do this, my husband," she begged. Vera's lips trembled. She realized with horror that her father meant every word, and her mother, despite her pleas, would ultimately stand by her husband because that was what was expected of a dutiful wife. The harsh truth sank in. She truly had nowhere to turn. Feeling like she was moving in a nightmare, Vera shuffled to her room. Each step felt heavy, as if her feet were made of stone. With blurry eyes, she pulled out a small battered suitcase from under her bed, the same one she had taken on family trips to the village in earlier years. She numbly stuffed it with clothes, maternity clothes, as she had secretly bought at the market with her meager savings. Clothes she had hidden at the bottom of her closet. How foolish to think she could hide something like this forever. She glanced around her room between packing, a room filled with signs of childhood she was being forced to leave behind. The stuffed teddy bear on her shelf that her mother bought for her 10th birthday, the academic award plaques on the wall from when she used to be top of her class, a framed photo of her family from a beach trip years ago, everyone smiling carefree. Tears dripped onto the photos as she picked it up. She gently set it face down on the dresser, unable to look at those happy faces. Zipping up the half-full suitcase, Vera wiped her cheeks. She didn't have much besides clothes and a few personal items. Everything else she would leave behind as memories of a life that was over. When she emerged from her room dragging her suitcase, she found her parents waiting in the living area. Her mother was sitting on the couch, face buried in her hands, quietly sobbing. Her father stood by the door, arms crossed, jaw clenched. She had the look of a man steeling himself to do something unbearable. Vera set the suitcase down. "Papa, Mama," she began, voice hoarse. "I'm sorry for everything. Stop," her father interrupted, raising a hand. His eyes glistened. It was the first hint that he might cry, but he blinked the tears away fiercely. "It's done. Just go, 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 go." Vera looked at her mother desperately. "Mama, please." Ife lifted her face. It was stained with tears, eyes red and swollen. She rose and approached Vera. For a second, her father looked like a mighty object, but he didn't. Ife took her daughter into a tight hug, sobbing openly. "My baby," she cried, stroking Vera's hair. "Oh God, please protect my child. Vera, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, my dear." Vera clung to her mother, the two of them trembling. "Mama, please, I don't want to go. I don't know what to do." From behind, Mr. Dewale's voice came, thick with emotion. He tried to suppress. "Efe, that's enough. Let her go now." Efe pulled back, cradling Vera's face in her hand. "Stay with Susan, okay?" she whispered hastily, naming Vera's old friend. "I will try to send you money quietly when I can. And please be careful. I love you, my dear." She placed a soft kiss on Vera's forehead. "Time to leave," Mr. Dewale said, his hand already on the front door, holding it open. With one final aching look at her mother, Vera nodded. She picked up her suitcase and with laden feet walked toward the door. As she passed her father, she paused, looking up at him one last time. "Papa," she said, choking back a sob, but his face was hard, set in unforgiving lines. "When you have your child," he said quietly, "perhaps you will understand why I must do this. Goodbye, Vera." Fresh tears spilled as Vera stepped out of the house, the sun glaring down on her like a spotlight. The door closed behind her, the click of it echoing like the slam of a prison gate. She stood outside her family home, the home she had been safe in for 16 years, now feeling as though she were on a strange new planet. Neighbors nearby pretended not to stare, but she could feel their eyes following her. The disgraceful daughter, pregnant out of wedlock, cast out onto the street. One woman across the way, who often chatted with her mother, shook her head sadly. A group of young men lounging by a car chuckled and whispered to each other. With as much dignity as she could muster, Vera straightened her back and began to walk. She had no idea where exactly she was going. Every step away from her house felt surreal. She knew only one thing. She could not go to Tunde's family for help. He had abandoned her, and she had too much pride to beg at the doorstep of the aunt he lived with, only to be turned away or was pityingly taken in temporarily. But in her pocket, she had a small slip of paper with an address scribbled on it. Months ago, when things were still happy, Susan had given her this. Susan's new apartment address on the other side of town, in case Vera ever wanted to visit. Susan, the name alone brought a flicker of hope. Susan had been her friend since junior secondary school, though Susan was a senior student while Vera was a junior student. Though they hadn't seen each other much in the last year, Susan was a few years older, around 20, and had always been a big sister to Vera. She had graduated and moved out of her parents' home to live on her own and work at a boutique. If there was anyone who might take compassion on her, it was Susan. Vera took a deep breath and wiped her tears, balancing her suitcase on her head in traditional fashion for easier carry. One hand steadying it, she started off towards the bus stop, determined to find refuge before the sun set on this terrible day. By the time Vera navigated the crowded downfall bus rides and winding streets to reach Susan's neighborhood, dusk was falling. The sky was turning a deep blue and mosquitoes began their evening song in her ears. She felt exhausted, physically from carrying her suitcase and emotionally from the sheer trauma of the day. Susan's apartment was a compound of one-story flat, tucked at the end of a narrow lane lined with potted plants. Vera's heart pounded as she approached the door of the flat number Susan had written down. What if Susan wasn't home? What if she refused to take her in? I don't have a choice, Vera thought, steeling herself. She raised a shaky hand and knocked softly. After a few agonizing moments, the door opened a crack. Susan's familiar face peeked out, her expression cautious. She had always been pretty, with a round face and kind eyes. When she saw who it was, her eyes flew open in surprise. "Vera?" Susan exclaimed, opening the door wider. Her gaze quickly traveled from Vera's face to the heavy suitcase balanced on her head, and then drifted downward to the obvious swells of Vera's stomach under her loose dress. Her mouth fell open. "Oh my... Vera, what happened?" Just hearing the warmth in her friend's voice brought a flood of relief. Vera couldn't hold back any longer. A sob burst forth and she lowered the suitcase from her head to the ground. "Susan, I have messed up," she stammered through tears. Immediately, Susan stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Vera in a comforting hug. "Oh my dear, come inside, come," she said gently, rubbing Vera's back. Susan helped her inside the small apartment. It was modest but tidy, just a single sitting room with a threadbare couch, a tiny dining table and a narrow corridor, presumably leading to a bedroom and bathroom. A ceiling fan whirled lazily above, and a small TV murmured in a corner, playing an old Nollywood film. Susan guided Vera to sit on the couch. The younger girl sank into the cushion, feeling a wave of fatigue. Her swollen feet ached from the day's stress and travel. "Let me get you some water," Susan said, rushing to the kitchen nook where she poured water from a filter pitcher into a cup. As she handed Vera the cup, Susan sat next to her, concern written all over her face. "Talk to me, Vera. Are you okay? What happened? Where is your family?" Vera gulped the water, realizing how parched she was. The cool liquid suited her dry throat. She wiped her eyes, though fresh tears threatened to spill. "My father, he found out I'm pregnant," she explained in a shaky voice. He kicked me out of house today." Susan's lips parted in dismay. "Oh no. Oh, Vera, I'm so sorry." She immediately took Vera's hand in hers, squeezing it firmly. The kindness in that small gesture unraveled Vera. The whole story came pouring out between sobs. How she had fallen in love with Tunde, the warnings from her parents, the secret meetings, the pregnancy, Tunde's abandonment, and finally that morning's explosive confrontation and her banishment from home. Susan listened without interrupting, her arm around Vera's shoulders. She occasionally muttered things like, "Chai, men are wicked," under her breath when Vera described Tunde's reaction. Or she shook her head in sympathy at the description of Mr. Adeware's fury. When Vera finished, she felt both drained and slightly relieved, as if sharing the burden lessened it, if only by a fraction. Susan took a deep breath, wiping her own eyes. She had teared up in empathy at some point. You have been through so much, my dear. I can't believe Uncle Adewale would go that far. I know he's strict, but to send you away? She sighed. So you really have nowhere else to go now? Vera shook her head, looking down at her hands. No one. I'm so scared, Susan. I don't know how I'm going to have a baby on my own or take care of it. I haven't even finished secondary school. My life, it feels like it is over. Hey, Susan said softly, tilting Vera's chin up to meet her gaze. It's not over, okay? It feels like the end of the world now, but you can still make a life for yourself. It will just be harder, but not impossible, and you won't be alone. I'm here. You mean I can stay here with you? Vera asked cautiously, hardly daring to hope. Of course, you can stay here, Susan replied without hesitation. Where else would you go? I'm not letting you sleep on the streets, God forbid. She tried to smile reassuringly. This place is small, but you can share my bedroom, or I can even sleep on the couch if it comes to that. Fresh tears welled up in Vera's eyes. This time, not of sorrow, but gratitude. Susan, thank you. I don't even know how to thank you. You're saving my life. Susan gently patted her hand. Don't mention it. What are friends for? We are like sisters, you and I. You would do the same for me if the situation were reversed. She stood up and went to a cupboard, pulling out an extra pillow and a folded bedsheet. Ada is in here, by the way, she added as she began making a space on the couch for Vera's suitcase and belongings. Ada, your younger sister? Vera sniffled, recalling Susan's sister, who was just 2 years older than her. Yes, she is in Port Harcourt now for a job training program. She only comes here for Christmas and maybe 1 or 2 visits a year, so it's just me here. Susan spread the bedsheet on the couch. We actually only moved to this apartment after Ada left for Port Harcourt, so there is room. Susan paused as if a new thought struck her. But Vera, your father, he will be so angry when he finds out you're staying with me. He could cause trouble, or he won't find out. Vera cut in quickly, anxiety flaring. He doesn't know your address. I never told him. I even had a way to contact you. And I doubt he will come looking. As far as he's concerned, I'm gone. Out of sight, out of mind. Susan frowned, clearly upset by the situation. That's so harsh. But maybe you are right. He's a proud man. Still, I don't want him to think I'm undermining his authority. I just want to help you. I don't think he will try to find me, Susan. Not after today. Vera lowered her eyes. She felt a deep sadness, thinking about her family, especially her mother. Mama knows I might come to you. She practically told me to. And she said she would try to send money. But who knows if she can? Susan nodded slowly, then gave a small encouraging smile. Well, whatever happens, we'll manage. It's not going to be easy, Vera, but we'll manage. I have a small salary from boutique and some savings. We'll figure things out one day at a time. Over the next few weeks, a routine settled in. Vera tried to be useful around the house. To make up for her presence, she cleaned, cooked meals, and waited for Susan to return from work in the evenings. Susan's kindness never wavered. She accompanied Vera to antenatal clinic appointments, paid for vitamins and checkups when Vera's own saved money ran out, and spent evenings chatting with her to keep her spirits up. They would sit on the little front stoop of the apartment at dusk, watching the neighbors' kids chase each other under the street lamps. Susan often spoke about the future to keep Vera hopeful. You can still go back to school after the baby comes, she would say. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. I know a lady who had a baby at 16 and still finished secondary school later. Perhaps you can even do evening classes. Vera, hands resting on her growing belly, would nod, though her heart clenched at the thought of facing people again. Maybe, she would reply quietly. We could find a way for someone to mind the baby while you are in class, Susan continued optimistically. Perhaps a neighbor, or I could adjust my shifts. We'll make sure you don't lose your future, Vera, I promise. Sometimes, Vera allowed a small spark of hope. She imagined completing school, maybe training as a nurse one day as she had dreamed. But other times, the reality of her situation suffocated her with fear. In those moments, she spoke very little, only listening as Susan tried to cheer her up with positive thoughts. One evening, about 3 months after Vera moved in, Susan returned from work with a second-hand baby crib and a bag of baby clothes. My boss' sister had a baby who outgrew these things, she explained, slightly out of breath from carrying the items. When I told my boss about you, she kindly offered this for free. The crib has a little crack, but it's still sturdy. Vera stared at the crib and tiny clothes, tears pooling in her eyes. Seeing these tangible items made everything feel all too real. She reached out and ran a hand over one of the little dress, the soft fabric bringing a lump to her throat. "Thank you," she whispered, voice thick. Susan beamed, though she noticed Vera's overwhelmed expression. She came over and gave her a side hug. "It's okay to be scared," she said gently. "I'm scared too. I've never helped deliver a baby or anything, but the midwife down the road has promised to help when the time comes. You met her last checkup, remember? Such a nice woman." Vera nodded. The local midwife, Auntie Chinyere, was indeed kind and experienced, and had been giving Vera tips on diet and preparing for childbirth. As the months rolled on, Vera's belly swelled, and she found it harder to move around. One overcast afternoon, as she sat shelling egusi seeds to help Susan prepare soup, a sudden pain seized her lower back and belly. She winced and let out a small cry, dropping the bowl of seeds. A few bounced across the floor. It was too soon. She was only 8 months along by her count, but the baby, it seemed, had other plans. The pain subsided after a minute, but soon another wave came, stronger and sharper. Vera doubled over, panting. Panic began to set in. She was alone at home. Susan wouldn't be back from the boutique for a couple of hours. When the next contraction hit, Vera knew this was it. The baby was coming, and fast. Dusk brought with it not just darkness, but a fierce storm. Rain battered the roof of the apartment with relentless roar. Lightning flashed, illuminating the tiny living room in a stark white, followed seconds later by booming thunder that rattled the windows. Vera lay on a mat on the floor, sweating and crying out as another contraction tore through her. The power had gone out, as it often did during heavy storms, so the room was lit by a single kerosene lantern that cast dancing shadows on the walls. "Breathe, my dear, breathe. That is it. You are doing well," groaned Auntie Chinyere, the midwife, who had thankfully arrived in time. The older woman's hands were steady on Vera's swollen belly. Feeling the position of the baby, she had tied a traditional wrapper securely around her waist and removed her headscarf in the heat of the moment. Despite the chaos, her experienced face remained calm. Susan knelt by Vera's side, holding her hand tightly. "Squeeze my hand when it's hot, okay? I'm here, she kept saying, her voice soothing but edged with worry. She periodically dabbed Vera's forehead with a cool, damp cloth. The contractions were coming closer and closer now. Vera felt like she had been in pain for an eternity, though it had really been only a few hours since it begun. Time had become meaningless. Only the waves of pain and brief rest in between existed. I can't do this," Vera gasped, as another contraction made her arch her back and cry out. She was exhausted and terrified. "Yes, you can," Susan encouraged, though tears clung to her own lashes as she watched her friend in agony. "You're one of the strongest girls I know, Vera. You can do this." "God is with you, child," added the midwife gently. "Your body knows what to do." The storm hurled outside, almost matching Vera's own screams as she began to push under the midwife's guidance. The baby was on its way. Lightning lit up the room at the exact moment a sharp piercing cry filled the air, the sound of a newborn's first wail. "It's a boy," Auntie Chinyere announced, lifting the tiny, sleepy baby into her arms. Vera collapsed back on the mat, panting and sobbing with relief and disbelief. Through her blood vision, she saw a midwife expertly tying and cutting the umbilical cord. The baby's cries were weak but steady. He was alive, despite her exhaustion. Vera let out a shaky laugh of joy. Her son. She had a son. But it wasn't over yet. Now, the other one. Push. One more, my dear. The midwife said quickly, placing the baby boy down on a clean towel and moving back to her assist with the second birth. Vera's eyes widened. Another one. So they are twins. Now, as another contraction gripped her, she clenched her teeth and bore down, screaming till her throat was raw. Susan's hand must have been aching from Vera's tight grip. But she never let go or complained. Almost there, she urged. Minutes later, a second cry rang out, soft at first, then louder, as the second baby filled her new lungs with air. A girl, Aunt Chinyere said with a smile, swiftly cleaning out the baby's nose and mouth so she could cry better. Oh, what beautiful twins, a boy and a girl. The midwife finished her work quickly, clamping and cutting the second cord. She placed the new-born girl next to her brother, wrapping them both together in a warm blanket. The two tiny infants squirmed and meowed like kittens. Outside, the rain continued to pound, but the thunder had begun to ebb as the storm moved on. Inside, the worst of the storm had passed as well. Vera was overwhelmed with emotion. She reached out with trembling hands. My babies, please, let me hold them, she whispered. Aunt Chinyere nodded, and with Susan's help, propped Vera up against a pillow against the wall. Then the midwife carefully placed the bundle of both babies into Vera's arms. Two tiny faces, eyes screwed shut, voices crying softly. Vera stared at them, her heart swelling with a fierce protective love she had never felt before. The boy had a little tuft of curly hair and was still bawling weakly. The girl had a rounder face and had calmed into quiet whimpers. They were so small, far smaller than Vera had expected. They might be a bit early, the midwife said, as if reading Vera's mind. Twins often come at 8 months, but they are healthy, small but strong. You hear that? Susan said softly, peering at the babies with wonder. They are healthy and strong, just like their mama. Vera felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She gently touched each baby's tiny hand, marveling at the miniature fingers. When one of them curled a tiny fist around her finger, she let out a wet laugh. Hi, I'm your mom, she whispered to them. But alongside the joy and awe, a cold tenderness of fear wound its way into Vera's heart. She was responsible for not one but 2 lives now. How could she, a girl of 16 with no money, no support from her family or the father, raise 2 infants? It had been hard enough to imagine caring for one. As if sensing her thoughts, Susan placed a hand on Vera's shoulder. They are beautiful, aren't they? Vera nodded wordlessly, tears still falling. You did well, the midwife said as she cleaned up the aftermath of the birth. You are strong, my dear. You will be a good mother. She spoke kindly, but the words made Vera flinch intentionally. A good mother. The guilt crept in almost immediately. She did not feel like a good mother. She felt like a terrified child. After ensuring both babies had cried and breathed properly, the midwife helped Vera attempt to nurse them. It was awkward and painful, but she managed to get them each to latch briefly, which Aunt Chinyere said was a good start. Susan helped as much as she could, though she was just as inexperienced. When the midwife finally left that night, pressing Susan to make sure both Vera and the twins were kept warm and fed, the apartment fell into a hush. The lantern had been blown out now that power returned. A dim light bulb cast a soft glow. The twins had fallen asleep after nursing, and Susan gently placed them side by side in the donated crib, wrapping them snugly. Vera, utterly spent, lay in bed watching from across the room. Her body ached in places she never knew existed, and she felt weak. But it was her mind that was most sad. Susan sat at the edge of the bed next to Vera. She brushed damp hair from Vera's forehead. "How are you feeling, aside from exhausted?" she added with a smile. Vera swallowed. Her throat was dry. "I don't know," she admitted in a hoarse voice. "Happy and scared, very scared, Susan." Her friend nodded, eyes full of sympathy. "I understand." She glanced fondly at the crib. "It's a lot, looking after two babies, but we'll manage somehow. Double dappers, double feeding, double blessings, as my aunt would say." Vera tried to smile at that, but her face crumbled. A sob burst out. I don't think I can do this," she whispered. "I'm so afraid I will fail them. I mean, look at me. I couldn't even take care of myself. How will I take care of them? Maybe Papa was right. Maybe I'm not ready to be a mother." "No one is ever truly ready, Vera," Susan said softly, wrapping her arm around her shoulders. "Most mothers start out scared, but you learn as you go. And you have me and Auntie Chinyere to help. And your own mother might come around too. Once the shock is over, you might have more support than you think, eventually." At the mention of her mother, Vera's heart ached. Would her mother even get to see these grandchildren? She wondered if her father had ever told anyone or if he kept his secret out of shame. The twins suddenly made little whimpering sounds, their tiny hands jerking in their sleep. Both girls looked to the crib, and despite her despair, Vera felt an overwhelming surge of love and protectiveness, seeing her babies twitch in their dreams. Susan smiled at the sight. "Have you thought of names?" she asked quietly. Names. In all the chaos, Vera had not even considered it deeply. She had been avoiding thinking too far ahead. "No, I haven't," she confessed. "Well, you don't have to decide right away," Susan said, patting her arm. "Get some rest now. I'll watch over the twins tonight. You need to recover." True to her word, Susan insisted Vera lie down and sleep while she attended to the infant through the night. Vera was so drained that she couldn't protest much. She drifted in and out of a fitful sleep, awakening whenever one of the babies cried or too weak to get up each time. Susan was always there first, cawing softly, walking the baby through the small living room until they settled. At dawn, Vera awoke to see Susan dozing in a chair by the crib, head lowered to the side. Both babies were asleep as well, snug and peaceful. An immense gratitude welled in Vera. She resolved that somehow she would repay Susan for all of this kindness, if not for her friend. She truly didn't know where she would be right now.